Greetings and welcome to the My Xbox and Me review of Assassin's Creed Origins, an open-world action RPG released on October 27th, 2017, developed by Ubisoft Montreal and published by Ubisoft. Assassin's Creed Origins rewinds time once again, sending players back to ancient Egypt to control Bayek, an Egyptian Magi whose quest for revenge and justice will see him fight to unravel a dark conspiracy that threatens the entire land. Playing Assassin's Creed Origins from the beginning in the story, it feels like you missed something. You're just in, and there's a cutscene, some stuff happens, and then it flashes back. You're just fighting this dude in like a tomb underground. This big, huge guy. And you kill him, because, you know, it's Assassin's Creed. And then you leave, you get on a camel, ride to a town, and then some stuff happens. And at no point was I like, where's the introduction for this game? Like, where's the setup? I feel like I'm right in the middle of, like, Act 1, but nothing was set up. And that feeling never really goes away. Like, you start inferring context from the things that are happening around you and, you know, all the cutscenes and characters that you interact with, but the entire time, pretty much until towards the very end, I was kind of like, why? Why is this happening?
You never really got an answer.
I mean, I got some answers, I suppose. It's very much an Assassin's Creed style story, so there's vast conspiracy poisoning the land of Egypt. And, you know, your job is to go kill all of the people behind this conspiracy. And Bayek himself is a Magi, so he's kind of like as close as you would get to a superhero in ancient Egyptian mythology, I guess. So I get why you would do it, but at the same time, like in previous Assassin's Creed games, you get that context of you're an assassin in the Assassin's Order, and because there's no Assassin's Order, there's no context to set up. You're just going and killing people.
Yeah, the Magi. You're coming up to Christmas. It's going to be about like he's going to be some sort of lord or like from the Middle East. Wait, no, he's a superhero. Wait, what?
I mean, it was the closest thing I could think of to say. Basically, like he's like a warrior who like helps fight against injustices and helps the people of Egypt out, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, rescues their kittens out trees, stuff like that. You know,
rescues people from being beaten by crocodiles. I remember the live stream.
You do eventually learn more about Bayek, and you learn more about the world and stuff like that. It's like the story itself doesn't have a reason to exist other than just setting up
because it is
more games. It feels like a prologue. It feels like it could have been a few missions in at the beginning of the next Assassin's Creed game, and it would have lent context to the story of whatever comes next. Because the ending is good, and it does a good job of setting up what's obviously going to be coming next. And it's not a bad game. It's not even a bad story by any stretch of the definition. I always felt a little bit dazed and confused while I was playing it.
Was this because of side missions in it? Do you think they helped or hindered the story?
The side missions are strange because, for once, there's an in-game, in-context reason for why the protagonist stops to help random people all the time with their problems. And that context helps, but at the same time, a lot of the side quests were just kind of dull. A lot of them felt like errands. I made a joke earlier about rescuing cats out of trees. They are more involved than that, but I never really connected with the people in the world. When bad things happen to good people, I said this in the Call of Duty review, like it does trigger an empathetic response, but I never really cared beyond that. Oh no, this bad thing's happening to you. I feel for you, but I also don't really care. I mean, the stories themselves in those tiny little vignettes could have been presented a lot better. Because a character I don't know is running up to me telling me all this bad stuff. It's like, well, I don't have any connection to you. And because I'm lacking context in the main story, I don't have any connection to Egypt.
You need to develop a rapport with these characters before you...
I need to feel like I am the Magi beyond just sort of going through the motions. And the game never gave you that context to be able to connect and think like that. Essentially, it just ends up feeling like you're just checking boxes off a checklist to gain XP so that you can tackle the next main mission.
Yeah, but it's never great. You can kind of get fatigued and burned out on games like that.
What ends up happening as well is you've got this huge map. The map, my God, is incredible in its size. But all the icons just end up feeling like busy work.
So how do you feel about the main character, the protagonist of the story?
I mean,
is there two?
Sort of. He's fine. You play Bayek for the majority of the game, but his wife Aya, she's a Medjay, and she's a devout warrior of Cleopatra, essentially. Because it's in ancient Egypt set in Roman times, and there's Romans everywhere, and there's Greeks as well in certain parts of ancient Egypt. Part of it is all about Cleopatra sort of trying to rise to take over or some bollocks, I don't know. Again, because I wasn't engaged, I stopped really paying attention to anything I wasn't stabbing. She's trying to gain support, and she does a thing where she's making deals with other people whose names I won't spoil. But the two characters are pretty cool. I have a feeling that we're going to be switching protagonists in the next game, not spoilers, but they were fun when they were together. They weren't together enough in the game for me. Beyond those two, no one else really makes an impact. If I try to recall other characters that were in the game, I can recall Cleopatra, or I can recall some others, but that's because they had famous names, not necessarily because they were good characters.
Yeah. What about because there's that whole annulus thing in Assassin's Creed?
Yeah, so you do have. They are actually seem to be going back all in on the modern day, the present day storyline. So you get a brand new character there. There's only a couple of very short scenes that take place in modern times, so they're not going all in like they did in the original Assassin's Creed or the Ezio trilogy, where it was like a big chunk of the story. And there's essentially only one real character in there. She's designed an animus that you don't have to be directly descended from someone to relive their memories. You just need their DNA, which is an interesting twist, and it really does unshackle Assassin's Creed and allow it to go in so many different directions. Other than that, I can't even remember her name.
Yeah.
So that should tell you everything you need to know.
Gary, what did ancient Egypt look like?
Oh my god, it looks so good. I mean, there's a moment in the game where you go to Giza. So I get there and I'm doing missions, and there's massive pyramids just right there. And to be fair, I've been able to see them for most of the game. One of them's obviously a sync point.
Yeah.
So I get to climb this massive pyramid, and I get to sit at the top. And when you hit the sync point, and it does the thing where it rotates the camera around slowly and shows you the view, and it looks incredible. Mind-blowing experience to just be able to see it all and know that it's all the game as well. This world is huge, but when I'm seeing all this stuff from the top of the pyramid for miles in every direction, it's like, well, I've been there and I've been there, and I can go there and I can go to that, and that thing in the distance is something I can visit. It's a great feeling. There's a really great variety to the world as well. You when you think of ancient Egypt, you think gold, yellow, sand, pyramids, but there's a lot of different types of areas. So you get to go to Alexandria and see the big cities, and you get to go to the lighthouse and see all the sort of the coastal areas. You get to go to the rundown places where all the poor people live, and you get to see where the Greeks live, and you get to see where the Romans live, and there's a really, really great variety to the world, so you're never seeing the same things over and over again. So because the world is so varied, and because it looks so beautiful, it's also really fun to just explore. My excitement for going to Giza wasn't based on the quest I was doing, the mission I was doing. It was just because I get to go to Giza and I get to see the Great Pyramids. Beyond sort of the major historical points, which has always been a strong point of an Assassin's Creed game.
Yes.
Just exploring in general and finding stuff is pretty cool. For the most part, it's fine when you're climbing, when you're fighting, when you're doing anything in the world. Everything will be animated quite well, but there are a few times where it doesn't work, and because this is a 30, 40, 50-hour experience, those few times start stacking up, and some of the stuff really takes you out of the experience. So, for example, taking down some stealth from behind, so you you do the usual thing, a big chokehold and stab him. Except the enemy might have already hit the ground because the animations aren't, so you're just fondling midair for a bit. But you're stuck in the animation, you're locked into it. The game does freeze occasionally, very, very rarely. I'm talking maybe in 30 hours, it happened 4 or 5 times. Animation glitches are everywhere, so enemies phase through floors, through stairs, get trapped because they'd gone into a piece of scenery they weren't supposed to go into. There was an enemy I'd marked everyone using the eagle on this one particular location, and then I just looked to my right and I saw this enemy vibrating, his white outline vibrating, and when I got closer, I saw him. He was literally like there was some stairs going up, and they weren't long stairs. It was like 5 or 10 steps, and he was literally caught between there, and he was trying to walk, but he couldn't because there wasn't enough space for him. I crashed a boat in the middle of a lake into nothing, to the point where the boat sank. Like I was just sailing along, doing my thing, and then the boat just collapsed, essentially. As much as Assassin's Creed Origins also looks really, really great, it has texture pop-in problems. Sometimes there'll be a horse-drawn cart, and the cart will spawn in first in the distance. And then you're just watching it go past, and then the horse will spawn in.
Okay. That's kind of funny, but I get why it would happen that way.
It's immersion breaking, so it's worth pointing out in the review, but it's also not game breaking. It doesn't destroy the experience. Just sometimes you'll see something like that, or you'll look at a rock and you'll see no texture on the rock at all. It's just a shape, and then the texture pops in, and that happens quite frequently.
What was the background music like? Was there a lot of it? Because I do remember hearing a little.
It certainly exists in the game,
but it's not memorable.
It's not. It's unmemorable. The thing that's memorable about the music is when it starts, because in combat it's obviously happening and it's going on in the background. But when you're just exploring, it's generally silent. There's generally no background music. But then all of a sudden, it just kicks in. And when it kicks in, it's quite loud. So all of a sudden, you're just exploring, say, Alexandria, and then all of a sudden the strings and the bass just come in, and it's just like, what the hell? Like, nothing's happening at all. But this music's just started because it hasn't been playing for the last 20 minutes.
If there's no music playing in the background, what's like the ambient stuff like? I mean, do you get this repeated thing of like a bird going caw caw?
I mean, you probably get a lot of repeating sound effects in the game. I never noticed, to the game's credit, I never noticed like repeating like bird calls or repeating loops of. The ambience is generally pretty great, especially when you're out in the wilderness or you're away from towns and away from cities. It does kind of help draw you into the experience and immerse you. The same can't be said for the background voices. The loops are so small that you keep hearing the same dialogue on repeat all the time. And what makes it even more grating is the fact that the voice acting that they're using for the background characters is pretty terrible. The main character voice acting is fine. It's passable, is what I would probably say. The two main characters, Bayek and Aya, are voiced well enough. For everyone else, I mean, it ranges from passable to just god-awful. There are some side characters whose voice acting is fine. There are other side characters whose voice acting is abysmal. Characters that you interact with during quests, their voice acting is not great. It mixes really badly as well at times. So you'll have characters... I mean, you get that when you're leading a character away from a bandit camp, say, and they're falling behind, so you can't really hear them very well, but sometimes when you're standing like right in front of someone and you're supposed to be able to hear them clear as day, sometimes their voice will be quite quiet and the ambience will drown them out. It's very rare that happens, but again, you're talking about a 30, 40, 50 hour experience, so very rare can sometimes mean like a dozen times or more. So they've made big changes to the combat from anything that's come before. It's much improved over any Assassin's Creed game that's come before it. The biggest change is that you're an active participant in combat rather than passively waiting for enemies to attack you so you can parry them. Essentially, before it used a similar sort of system to Batman. You were literally just waiting to push Y and then counter, and then push Y again and counter, push Y again and counter, and they would just be blocking the entire time beforehand, so attacking them was pointless. So it was literally you would just be stood in the middle of a group of enemies waiting. Now it's a lot more active, so parrying's pretty much gone. It's more dodging and blocking now. So you got a shield, you've got a dodge, you're rolling, you're blocking attacks, stuff like that. It's a lot more satisfying to actually play. You've got your two different attacks, your light, your heavy attacks. You've got different weapons that will appeal and play differently at different play styles. So you've got axes, giant axes, which are long-reaching weapons and do more damage, but they're slower. You've got swords. You've got dual knives that take away your blocking ability but give you a really fast attack, stuff like that. So there's a lot to the combat as well as it just changing the systems. The controls take a little bit of getting used to, though,
Mhm.
because now you're using triggers and bumpers to actually attack, which is very strange in an open world action game.
Yeah. Instead of just hitting like the four main buttons.
And the camera's a little bit wonky because you can lock on to enemies, but sometimes it doesn't lock on when you click the stick.
Assassin's Creed is a very three-dimensional game. Is it still fun to sort of like go up as like in like the exploration kind of, I think you might call it.
Yeah, the verticality still exists. So, because it's set in ancient Egypt, most buildings aren't that high
Yeah.
in Assassin's Creed. So, but there is still a lot of verticality, especially say out in the mountains where you have to climb mountains, or in the major cities because of the way they're built. They're sort of tiered, so they're built up
Yeah.
hills essentially. So can still be a lot of verticality to the game, though. When you're exploring and you're climbing, it's great. It's fine. It's a lot of fun to do that. As I mentioned before, the main way you're going to be using verticality in gameplay is when you're sneaking. So most side quests, and actually a fair few main quests, will take you to a fortress or a
Mhm.
bandit camp or something like that, which are optional areas where there are optional objectives to kill captains, commanders, loot treasure. So you generally tend to do both at once, but these locations are easily the best part of playing the game because you're trying to figure out how the best way to get around them, generally without getting spotted.
I like the way they generally.
Sneak my way in, fight my way out, I think is the best way to describe it. But using that verticality and all the stuff like the bushes you can hide in and walls you can hide behind to find your way around these forts is great. The only issue is it brings across something that has been present in Assassin's Creed since the very first game 10 years ago, which is there are going to be plenty of times where your character jumps to the wrong ledge, jumps in the wrong direction, or generally does something that you don't want them to do. When it's working properly, when the character's doing everything that you want them to do, it feels great. It feels really maddening when they're not. Fighting the AI characters they're competent. It's probably the best way to describe it. They can keep you on your toes and they can give you a challenge. They're easy to manipulate in stealth, however,
Right.
because they're not particularly perceptive. So you can literally they have a perception bar that fills up as most stealth games do. So you can run out in front of them, and as long as you don't stay too long in their vision, you can then hide again.
Right.
And they might sort of do that. Was there something over there? And then they'll come across, and
Yeah.
then you can stab them. You can leave one body, and then another person will come across. And then you stab them from the bush that's right next to them, and then another person will see it, and then you can just keep doing that. I murdered about 10 guys in a latrine because they just kept going to the latrine one at a time to use it. The weapon system is the better part of the progression because again it plays to different play styles, and you can really figure out how you want to play the game, and then tailor your weapon loadout to that. The best part about it as well is if you get a really good weapon that you're really comfortable with and you really enjoy using at a low level, you can pay in-game currency to keep upgrading it. So it will always keep up with you if that's a weapon that you enjoy using. For example, I got a pretty powerful axe early on in the game, and I really enjoyed using it, and it suited my combat player style quite well. So I was able to keep using that without having to try and find another one. And as far as the RPG stuff, it's split into 3 trees. You've got your ranged combat, you've got your normal combat, and then you've got your everything else. And it's all fine. You level up at a pretty decent rate, so you never really feel like you're having to grind it out. And the game does have microtransactions, and it does have loot boxes, and it does have bundles that you can buy for weapons. You can buy weapons, you can buy crafting materials, so that you can upgrade your damage, your health, stuff like that. Much like in any other single player experience, they unbalance the game when you use them because they're essentially cheat codes. Essentially in a single player game, a loot box or a microtransaction is a cheat. You're buying a more powerful weapon, you're buying ability points that you're not supposed to have, you're buying crafting materials instead of going out into the world and actually getting them. And what ends up happening is you end up having a less rewarding gameplay experience. If you want the best possible experience with Assassin's Creed Origins, ignore the microtransactions. Assassin's Creed Origins is a successful soft reboot of the franchise. While its story does feel like a prologue that was stretched a bit too thin, the excellently presented world of ancient Egypt and the well-designed gameplay systems more than make up for this, keeping players constantly engaged and immersed for the 30-plus hour runtime. Egypt is gorgeous and bursting with wonder and exploration, and the overhauled combat system does a great job of keeping players engaged with the game. Coupled with the excellently designed levels and the smooth stealth experiences, Origins is a positive fresh start for the Assassin's Creed series. Thanks very much for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, please consider leaving us a like, comment, or even subscribing to the channel. And as always, keep it here at my Xbox and me for more reviews, commentary, let's plays, and a weekly podcast. Have a great day, guys.